This video is brought to you by America First Insight. Help support the growing conservative movement by becoming a member today. And if you want to support this channel, you can also use the code REAL when becoming a member. Thank you and enjoy the video. As everyone knows, I have been very adamant that despite everything going on, I still think the Republican Party will retain the Senate majority come November. Now, let's be clear. That does not mean I'm saying the Republicans will keep the House majority. I think despite the likely scenario they do keep the Senate, I think right now, unless something crazy happens, unless something changes, I do think Democrats, they will take the House majority come November. I think that's the most likely outcome as of now. But at the same time, in the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of weird hype developing around the idea that not only will Democrats take the House, which again, that's one thing to say. I agree with that right now. I think some of it is overhyped, how big of a majority they get, but whatever. That's a separate discussion. But not only that, there's now some people going around and saying Democrats are the favorites to take back the Senate. You didn't mishear me. We're not talking about some people saying, oh, Democrats have a 35% chance of taking the Senate back, which I still think that's kind of high even right now. I think as of now, there's like a 25 to 30% chance they take the Senate back. That's one thing to say that. Like, okay, that's within the realm of possibility, I guess. But no, you have people like Robert Barnes running around and saying the Democrats' true odds of taking the Senate should be, and I quote, 75%. Yeah, not 39% like Polymarket's saying, which again, I disagree with that. I think it's closer to 25%. But whatever, that's a separate discussion. They're not saying it's 40%. It's not 39%. No, we're talking about people actually think the Democrats are the clear favorites to take back the Senate. And we're talking about 75% chance of it happening. Are you serious? This is insane. I don't care what you think about Trump's presidency, the state of affairs right now. It is utter insanity to really suggest, oh, there's a 75% chance the Democrats take back the Senate. Are you insane? And a lot of people are actually believing this. You can't make this up. It is insane what people are saying right now. I am just stunned that this is actually real. And he's being serious. He's being serious about this. I have no clue what happened to Barnes. That crew of people, they lost their minds a long time ago. In the last year, they completely lost it. They've gone batshit crazy. They're delusional. When you look at what they're saying, they're acting like prototypical resist liberals. It's insane. So let's talk about the current state of the Senate, because I don't think these people truly understand that even with everything going on, Republicans right now, they are still the clear favorites to take back the Senate or retain the majority. Maybe they lose a couple Senate seats, and we'll get to that. But even then, you're pushing it by saying they have a 75% chance of losing the Senate. Are you insane? That is one of the most delusional and deranged takes I have ever seen. And just to demonstrate how insane this really is, let's look at the current map right now. And I should be clear, this is not an official prediction, but this is just to demonstrate how insane some of these takes really are, because you look at what they're actually saying and you realize they're convinced states like Iowa, Florida are actually competitive. Yeah, you heard that right. Iowa and Florida. They're claiming that these states are going to go down the wire. Republicans, they might win it, but it's going to be by like 2 points. I'm not even joking. Listen, I think 2026, it will be a Democrat environment. Sure. But right now, especially in these two states, there are absolutely no indicators to prove that Iowa, let alone Florida, are going to magically have this 15-point shift to the left. I mean, what is this fascination with Iowa going Democrat? These same people, except like Barnes until recently, they've been saying this for years now that Iowa's going to flip Democrats. Same thing with Florida. Voter registration in both states show Republicans are killing Democrats on this front. Like what argument do you have that these states are going to be competitive? There isn't any. It's horse shit. So already, that's two states right there. This shouldn't be a hot take, but some people are actually convinced that Iowa and Florida, they're going to flip this time. This is a time for these states to finally flip. And that doesn't even mention the fact that in Florida, you have an incumbent, and the Democrat primary is an utter shit show. You have Vindman running. Yes, you can raise a bunch of money. We know this. But guys, the Democrat primary still is pathetic. It's brutal. Same thing in Iowa. Republicans don't really have the same primaries. So already, we're talking about R plus 10, R plus 20 states that Republicans already have these advantages. They're going to have a bigger advantage without the competitive primary. Democrats have the opposite. They have some brutal primaries. So yeah, already, Florida and Iowa, they might get closer, but do you guys really think they're going to flip? Just honestly. So right there, you already have 48 for the GOP. You already have 48 seats that you can't really dispute. No matter what you try to spin this as, the Democrats, even a best case scenario, they're not going to win Iowa. Let's cut the crap. Same thing with Florida. They might get closer. That doesn't mean anything. And there's other states as well you can talk about, like Texas. Listen, I do agree that with Ken Paxton, the race will be closer. I do think Ken Paxton alone, he makes a race significantly closer. Think Trump 2020 margins, where he still won the state by like 5 points, but for a Republican, it was kind of pathetic. It might get even closer than that. But here's the thing. Ken Paxton electorally, he might have some issues. He's going against Jasmine Crockett. There's like an 80% chance it's Jasmine Crockett. Do you really think Jasmine Crockett is going to be an electoral juggernaut? The average independent voter, they may not like Paxton. Do you think they're going to vote for her? Seriously? She's even more politically toxic. And we're talking about Texas. Every time, especially early on, the polls are just bad. Like even in 2024, the polls had Cruz, they had him winning, but not by 9 points or whatever it was. He was winning by like 4 or 5 points. And for a while, it was like a 2 to 3 point victory, if that. He won by like 8 or 9 or whatever it was. So yeah, it's like Texas and might get close with Ken Paxton. Fine, I understand that. With Paxton, he has some electoral issues, but really, do you think these voters are going to vote for Jasmine Crockett? If they're not going to vote for Ken Paxton, do you think they're going to cross the aisle and vote for Crockett? They'd probably stay home, which makes the race closer, but I don't see the average independent voting for her at all. So that's another state right there where I'm not saying it's a guaranteed safe state, but more than likely it's going to go to the Republicans. And people might say, well, actually, Republicans, they have to worry about fundraising because they're going to have to spend a bunch of money in Texas. Okay, that has always been an issue with the GOP, money. But guess what? Unlike prior elections, Republicans have the fundraising advantage clearly. Maybe not at a state-by-state basis, but at the national level, they are obliterating Democrats in fundraising. We're talking about historical margins by the GOP. Trump's super PAC has like $400 million. The RNC has way more than a DNC does. It's a lot of money. So if you're worried about having to spend money in Texas to make sure Ken Paxton wins, we already have enough money. We have enough cash in hand already. And the X factor in all of this is Elon Musk. With him supporting the GOP again, he's willing to spend a bunch of money if they absolutely need to. Look at Kentucky. He gave $10 million to Nate Morris, who's currently in 3rd place. He's surging now. I'm just baffled how people could say, yeah, this is a 75% chance that Democrats win the Senate. How? Iowa and Florida, they're not going to flip. If they keep saying this, it's not going to happen. Voter registration indicates it's going Republican. Texas might be closer, but Jasmine Crockett is an electorally awful candidate, even weaker than Paxton is. These average swing voters, they may just not vote. It may get closer. That doesn't mean anything. And if you're worried about money, again, Elon Musk, he has fuck you money. And the Republicans at the national level, they have hundreds of millions of dollars already ready. Like they're ready to spend this money at any point. So yeah, with that, the GOP is already at 49 seats, and you can't really dispute any of this, especially Iowa and Florida. So all the Republicans have to do is win one more seat to be at 50-50. And if you want to get technical and not have to worry about Lisa Murkowski, you have to win 2 of these 7 to get a real majority, just in case Murkowski does something stupid. Okay? That's it. And a lot of these states, they're not Democrat-leaning states at all, especially Ohio and Alaska. Yes, Democrats have top-tier recruits in both states. That is absolutely true. Sherrod Brown in Ohio and Patola in Alaska, they're very strong candidates. I do think these states will be closer. But here's the issue. And again, why nobody mentions this, I don't know. I don't know why they don't. But there's some major issues in both states. For starters, we're not talking about an R+5 state. We're not talking about like North Carolina, which is R+3 or whatever, R+5. Ohio and Alaska are R+10 to R+20 states at a consistent level. Not for one cycle, it's been consistently R+10, R+15, R+20, and especially Ohio, that state's getting more Republican. Maybe Republicans hit their ceiling in 2024. That is entirely possible. But honestly, do you think that you're going to see this historical reversal in not just one of these 2 states, but both of them? Really? So already you're pushing it by saying that both of these states are going to be down the wire. There are R+10 states, R+15 states. But on top of that, guess what? The Republicans have incumbents in both states. Dan Sullivan in Alaska, he's been there for a while. And Husted in Ohio, yes, he was an appointment. We all know this. But guess what? He still is the incumbent. And it's not like he's ever not won anything statewide. He was the lieutenant governor for a while. He was on the ballot with DeWine when they won in a landslide. And even before that, he was the Secretary of State. So he's won statewide elections before. Same with Dan Sullivan. Hell, Sullivan, he actually won the Senate election back in 2020. So all of these factors are clearly indicating that even though the environment will be much more Democrat than 2024, this gives Republicans, by default, a huge advantage. And we didn't even mention the fact that while, yes, Sherrod Brown and Mary Patola in Alaska, they might be very strong candidates. Guess what? They both lost in 2024. That is very important to note because guess what? The vast majority of time where statewide candidates lose and they try to run again, especially like 2 years after the fact. We're not talking about 10 or 15 years later. We're talking about right after they lose, they try to run again statewide. Most of the time, they tend to do worse. That it's not a guarantee, of course. Sometimes there are exceptions. We know that, but the majority of the time, these candidates, they tend to underperform big time. A good example, Kari Lake in Arizona. I know we're talking about a midterm versus a general and a governor election versus Senate race, but guess what? She did significantly worse the second time around, even though Arizona was even more Republican than it was in 2022. She did even worse because guess what? For whatever reason, Candidates that lose and try to run again, they tend to underperform, especially statewide. And Sherrod Brown, he lost in 2024. Same thing with Patola. And we're actually seeing this play out right now. Look at Ohio. Sherrod Brown, some of these unions that backed him in 2024, guess what? They're not backing him this time around. And in fact, they're supporting Husted. It's stuff like that that makes it harder for a candidate like Brown, even though he is electorally very strong. It makes it very difficult for him to win. That's the issue. It just, you try to run again, especially 2 years after the fact, you tend to shit the bed. For whatever reason, that's what happens the majority of the time. So right there, again, they might be closer states, but do you really think you're going to lose both Ohio and Alaska? Even with a more Democrat environment, guess what? All of these factors are overwhelmingly favoring the GOP across the board. Incumbents, fundraising, voter registration, all of it. It might make these states closer. I'm not denying that. And I do think Democrats, they might win North Carolina, Michigan, New Hampshire, Georgia. But even then, even if they lose Maine, Republicans are at 51. That's the problem. The math right now, even though it's gotten better for Democrats, it's still not there. And also, look at this right here. They have done studies where they found out that the midterm elections have gotten significantly more nationalized, which means it is much more difficult for, say, a Republican to win a Harris seat and vice versa, for a Democrat to win a Trump seat. It's possible, but the correlation right now clearly indicates that, yeah, if a Trump wins this seat, a Republican's going to win it. And if Harris wins this seat, a Democrat's going to win it in both the House and the Senate. Could that change? Absolutely. 2026 could be a very bizarre election. But right now, I'm just not seeing how anyone can seriously say there's a 75% chance that Democrats take the Senate. That's insane. 30% we'll talk about, but 75%? What are we doing here? Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.